As the world's leaders gather in New York for the UN General Assembly, former New Zealand Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Dame Jacinda Ardern, is back in the spotlight. She's now living here in America and is talking about why she suddenly left the highest profile job in New Zealand and what's next. So as you know, world leaders are gathered not too far away from here for the UN General Assembly. It was about 7 years ago that you addressed the UN General Assembly. Do you miss at all having that seat at the table?
Yeah, look, there's no doubt if you're someone that goes into politics because you care about the state of the world and you want to make a difference, then you do miss the platform, that opportunity to add your voice. But that doesn't mean that I regret my decision. I still believe it was the right thing to do.
There's a moment in the documentary Prime Minister that's now on HBO where you start out with a lecture with your students and you're saying we have to rehumanize each other. How do you suggest that we go about doing that?
Yeah, I think we live in a world where it's very, very easy in the way that we communicate with one another to slip into really binary thinking, black and white. You know, my view is good, yours is evil. And when we build that binary thinking, it's very easy to then dehumanize one another. We live in a time that is incredibly fraught. We have significant challenges, climate change, global conflict, inequality. All of them require us to have the ability to at least discuss and debate respectfully, remembering that despite diverse views and opinions, we do have a shared humanity.
We must redouble our efforts to work as a global community.
When you spoke at the UN General Assembly, you talked about how there were basically two options. You can figure out what the problems are and try to work towards solutions, or you can essentially turn a blind eye to it. 7 years later, how do you feel that the world has done with addressing these issues?
One of the oldest tools in the playbook for politics is the weaponization of fear, especially in times of uncertainty, and fear then coupled with blame. We've been through tough times before as a global community, not least, wars, pandemics before now, and in 1918, the Great Depression. And, I look to the likes of the leadership like FDR during those times, not pretending the solutions are easy, sitting down and explaining to people the options the government has, not weaponizing fear and blame. So that's the kind of leadership I spend a lot of time now sharing, talking about, amplifying and supporting politicians who use that form of leadership as opposed to some of the others.
We mentioned the documentary Prime Minister on HBO. I want to take a look at a clip.
I had waves of incredible anxiety. Not about losing, but about winning. I think I have probably natural levels of anxiety for someone who's 37 years old and 10 weeks ago did not anticipate being in this position. And who's also pregnant.
And we'll get to the pregnancy part in a moment, but take us back to that moment. Of course, you don't love superlatives, but you were the youngest female ever to become the head of a nation around the world. What was the weight of that?
Yeah, I think actually when you're doing the job of campaigning to try and, win government, that is your focus. Your focus is entirely domestic, getting that, doing the very best in the role that you have. And I found myself with 7 weeks notice, basically. My boss came to work one day and he quit and he nominated me, and I had 7 weeks to try and prove myself to New Zealand to become Prime Minister.
Of course, you faced a number of personal threats. There were those who called you the Queen of Woke, a girl in a skirt on a power trip, and the Conservative coalition would also often compare you to Nazi Germany. You see the division that exists here in America at this time, especially with the increased threats and actual acts of violence on many politicians. Anything that we can learn from your time in office when you were facing that years ago?
Leadership matters in those moments. And my view is that violence begets violence, hate leads to hate. Those really strong, important messages, certainly from my experience from leadership, just denouncing that and trying to maintain a standard of expectation that we conduct ourselves in the way that we would hope others would too.
Once you made the decision that you were going to step down, did it immediately feel like a load off?
It did. I think when you see power as responsibility, then the moment that you make the decision that you're walking away and that role is then removed, it's almost instant. And it even surprised me how quickly it left my shoulders.
Would you ever consider returning to life in politics?
In New Zealand? No.
Anywhere, anywhere.
Well, it's as should be the case. Obviously, New Zealand is the place where I'm eligible to run, and I've left. And I have great faith in all the people, my team who are still there. They don't need me.
What's ahead for you?
Yeah, I will, so long as I feel useful in the world. And at the moment, talking about the importance of empathetic leadership in these times is something that I feel like is a useful contribution. So that's what I'm happy doing, and that's what I'll keep doing, finding those ways to be useful.
But again, you have the weight of another job, perhaps a bigger job, depending on how you look at it, of being mom to Nave.
Yeah.
And then you end up writing a book. What inspired the book?
Oh, procrastination. I was meant to be writing a speech to depart from Parliament, which is a tradition in New Zealand, and I just couldn't bring myself to write those words. So I thought instead, what would I want to capture about being only the second leader in the world to have a baby while in office, and what it is to be a mother while trying to run a country? So I wrote Mum's Busy Work, and it came quickly because it is predominantly based on things that Neve would say or do while I was in office. So it really is her book as much as mine.
Is that often your advice to mothers? Because I'm sure you get it all the time about how do I balance being a mom and a working mom outside of the house?
You can do it all, but don't do it alone. Don't expect to do it alone. And so that's one of my big messages. And the second is everybody, even if you're a world leader, feels guilty all of the time.
That's really good to hear, actually. As a working mom myself, I think we all need to give ourselves that grace.
So give yourself the grace,
As a mom, I think it's so important, the message that you have in the book for parents.
Yes.
Realizing we're not alone in this struggle.
I've heard it's made a couple of parents cry. So there you go. Not the intention, but there it is.
Not surprising at all. Jacinda, we thank you so much for the time and
conversation.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Her new book, Mom's Busy Work, is out in stores tomorrow. And her new documentary, Prime Minister, is streaming on HBO Max starting September 30th.